You think it's you. It's just the role they trained you to play. You say, "This is just how I am. I've always been this way." But have you? Or is it just the version of you that survived the earliest rooms? You weren't born quiet. You learned silence stopped the tension. You weren't born nice. You learned kindness kept you safe. You weren't born selfless. You learned early that disappearing made love safer. So you became invisible, one reaction at a time. And now, you defend it, protect it, call it identity. It's not you. It's just the survival script you practiced so long it became your voice. The world didn't ask who you were. It told you who to be, and rewarded you every time you obeyed the emotional script. Now you flinch at conflict. You over-explain when misunderstood. You feel guilt just for taking up space. Not because it's who you are, but because it's who you became to be accepted. And here's the shift. You don't need to discover who you are. You need to uninstall who you were told to be. Let's start there. Your identity wasn't chosen, it was installed. You didn't choose your personality, it was assigned. Through tone, through reward, through emotional consequence. You didn't cry. They smiled. So you buried your sadness, and over time, renamed it strength. Someone gave you attention when you pleased them, so you learned to overgive. Someone withdrew love when you spoke up, so you learned to shrink. It didn't feel like programming. It felt like survival. But repetition turns reaction into identity. And now, you call it you. You say you're easygoing, but really, you're conflict avoidant. You say you're strong, but really, you didn't get stronger. You just got better at shutting it down first. You say you're the stable one, but really, you were never given permission to fall apart. That's not who you are. That's who your nervous system became to keep you safe. A nervous system trained to fit whatever role got the least resistance. And the worst part, you keep reinforcing it. Daily. Subtly. By saying yes when you mean no. By fixing what you didn't break. By apologizing for having needs you were conditioned to hide. So, no. This identity wasn't built by design. It was built by demand. Not yours. Theirs. And every time you perform the role again, the frame hardens, the lines deepen, and the person underneath fades further. But here's the shift. If the role was installed, it can be uninstalled. And we begin by learning to catch the moment you're about to perform, instead of choose. Signs. You're living inside a script. You didn't write. You think this is just your personality, but it's not. It's a performance, refined over years, rewarded by others, and now running on autopilot. Here's how you know. 1. You over-explain when you feel misunderstood. You want to be clear. But what you really want is to be accepted. You're not speaking to express. You're speaking to survive a threat that's not even there anymore. 2. You feel guilty when you don't meet unspoken expectations. No one said it out loud. But you still feel bad for not adjusting. That's not empathy. That's emotional obedience. 3. You say yes when your whole body wants to say no. You feel the boundary, then override it to keep the image intact. You're not choosing. You're protecting a role you were once praised for. 4. You avoid conflict even when silence costs you more. You'd rather hold resentment than risk being too much. You weren't taught to speak honestly. You were trained to keep peace, even if it costs yours. 5. You say yes to an outdated, just to honor the approval that shaped you, because stepping out of role feels like betrayal, not to others, to the version of you they taught you to protect. These aren't quirks. They're survival patterns etched by emotional conditioning. And every time you act from them, you're not being yourself. You're being who they trained you to be when you were most emotionally exposed. But the moment you see the pattern, you have a choice. Keep performing, or begin collapsing the frame. That's where we go next. The longer you stay in the role, the more it feels like you. You didn't choose the role. You survived into it. Say the right thing. Be easy to like. Disappear just enough. It worked. So you repeated it. Over and over. And each time you played the role, the nervous system made it faster. Less thinking. Less resistance. Just execution. Until one day, you stopped noticing it was a role at all. You called it who I am. But roles become real, not because they're true, but because they're practiced. You weren't born the peacemaker. You became that because conflict made love feel unsafe. You weren't born selfless. You just learned that being needed was the closest thing to being wanted. You weren't born emotionally strong. You just learned early that breaking down wasn't an option. And now, you wear it like armor. But now, it's corroding you from within. You even resent those who threaten it. Because without it, you don't know who you are. That's not identity. That's dependency. On a frame, on a function, on a version of you built for someone else's comfort. The longer you stay in that identity, the more loyalty you build to it. Even when it hurts. Even when it limits. Even when it collapses everything underneath. Because what's painful, but known, feels safer than what's free, but uncertain, than unfamiliar freedom. But here's the shift. You don't have to burn the role. You just need to pause the performance long enough to let your real voice return. And that's where frame collapse begins. Frame collapse. 3 tactical steps to break the role and return to choice. You don't need to find yourself. You need to stop rehearsing the self that was built for you. And that starts by collapsing the frame. Here's how Cold Mind does it. 3 tactical steps. 1. Catch the role in real time. Every role has a trigger. Someone looks disappointed. You start over-explaining. Someone pulls away. You start proving. Someone gets quiet. You rush to make peace. That's not you thinking. That's your nervous system performing the old identity. So pause, mid-reaction, and ask, what role am I playing right now? Not, what's happening? Not, how do I feel? Just, who trained me to react like this? Naming the role breaks its hold. 2. Pause the performance. The moment you catch the role, don't fight it. Don't defend it. Just stop acting. Let the silence stretch. Let the discomfort rise. Let the reaction pass. Without feeding it. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to stop pressing play. Because once the reflex is frozen, choice returns. 3. Respond from void. Now you move, but not from guilt. Not from performance, not from the version of you that's always explained, softened, adjusted. You respond from emptiness, from a place outside the role, without trying to be kind, or strong, or agreeable. You don't owe loyalty to the identity that protected you. You owe truth to the one that's ready now. This is frame collapse. Catch the script, pause the performance. Respond from the blank space beneath it. No reaction, no role, just command. Do this enough times, and the nervous system will stop rehearsing who you used to be and start responding from who you are now, by choice. Final message. You're not who you are. You're just who you had to be. You've met someone who doesn't defend their identity, not because they're passive, but because they've stopped playing the role. You criticize them. They don't explain. You misunderstand them. They don't correct. You withdraw. They don't chase. Not out of indifference, out of clarity. Because once you collapse the frame, there's nothing left to protect. No role to prove. No label to uphold. No version of you that needs to be validated to stay intact. That's not weakness. That's freedom. You're not holding the identity. You're standing beneath it. Most people defend the version of themselves they were taught to be. The overachiever. The good one. The strong one. The reliable one. But none of that was chosen. It was scripted. And you've kept it alive by playing the part so well, you forgot it was just a part. Now, you see it. And once you see the frame, you don't owe that role a future. You owe yourself the truth of who you are without it. You owe yourself the discomfort of becoming unscripted. In the next video, we'll expose the emotional debt system, how people make you feel like you owe them loyalty, closeness, self-sacrifice, in exchange for identity they once gave you. Subscribe. Don't honor the program. Don't explain the mask. End it. Cold. Quiet. Done.